Hello, I'm Maciej Mikos and you're watching World Talks. Russia's Vladimir Putin is in China, amongst other world leaders who applaud Beijing's vision of a new world order. What does it mean for Europe, and especially in the context of the war in Ukraine? To talk about it, we're joined by Marek Menkiszak, head of Russia Department and the Center for Eastern Studies. Good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Let's start with the most basic question then. Is Vladimir Putin visiting his partner or his patron?
Well, obviously he wants to present this visit as a even partnership between the two states. But it is not a secret that, especially given the circumstances, the systemic conflict between Russia and the West, the sanction regime, there is great and increasing dependency of Russia on China. And actually, this meeting has even confirmed that it's deepening.
Mm-hmm. So if you could characterize this cooperation this past few days, I mean, what have the two signed in Beijing, Putin and Xi?
Well, first of all, we have to understand that this kind of events are first of all meant for political and propaganda purposes. So it is about grandstanding. It is about joining in statements and photo opportunities. This is about messaging, and it is precisely about it. This is about an image of power, image of cooperation, deepening cooperation, image of alternative towards the West and the order, the global order, which used to be dominated by Western countries. So both Beijing, Moscow, and to some extent some other participants of these events conveying these messages that we are not dependent on you, the West. We can cooperate between ourselves and we can do business and we can be fine. And you will not dictate to us the terms. But if we take a look into details of this event, the outcome of that, including the bilateral between Russia and China, it is very meager. It's they've advertised that the 22 agreements have been signed, but huge majority of them are very small technical agreements, obviously in various areas, including energy, including science, space cooperation, propaganda and media outlets, which consist, these are 1/3 of those signed. And probably the only potentially important agreement is that one which has been heavily advertised by head of Gazprom, Alexei Miller, who said that there had been binding agreement signed on construction of a new large gas pipeline uniting Russia and China, so-called Power of Siberia 2 pipeline. The problem is, however, that the signature of such a legally binding agreement, how Mr. Miller had put it, had not been acknowledged yet by the Chinese side. We know that only a framework strategic agreement and cooperation have been signed between the parties. So we don't know what are, in fact, the agreed elements, and most probably these not include the most important terms, including financial terms.
Right. Well, it was in Russia's interest, right, to sign this deal, and China is once again showing Moscow who dictates terms here. Now, as you said, that the big part of this summit in China is a pure diplomatic or political show-off, and I guess the very same purpose is the tomorrow's parade has the very same purpose. Now, how much is China involved in Russia's war effort in Ukraine?
Well, China, of course, officially states that it's neutral to the conflict and it seeks ways to support the peace process, even proposing a sort of basis for potential agreement. However, the reality is that even though there are not direct significant military provisions from China towards Russia, the huge war effort of Russia is considerably supported by China through other means, mostly by providing so-called dual-use goods, industrial capabilities, semiconductors, and electronic elements which are weapon grade, which can be used and are being used in Russian weapons, actively used against Ukraine. So it is not true that China is neutral. China supports Russia. And officially states what even before Minister of Foreign Affairs Wang Yi have said, that China is not interested in Russia losing this conflict. So there is a strategic partnership between the two, going beyond even official declarations. This is the de facto alliance. But this is very asymmetric relationship. So we have to understand that Russia is heavily dependent on China. It is mostly visible in economic relationship. The basically 40% of Russia trade is currently with China, which is reciprocated only with 4% of China's trade, which Russia occupies. So this is a huge asymmetry, and as long as Russia is under Western sanctions, this will continue, and this is going to deeper, despite of all the slogans which both sides try to promote.
Now, some would argue that Russia depends on North Korea these days as well, and Kim Jong-un is also one of Xi Jinping's guests in Beijing. How much longer can Pyongyang keep the Russian war machine going?
Well, again, we have to take into consideration that the Northern Korean support, at least at this until recently, have been mostly having a political meaning, in a sense that those supposedly about 11,000 troops, North Korean troops deployed to Russia, defending the Russia proper territory attacked by Ukraine in Kursk Oblast, is not any remarkable force. More of importance is ammunition, potentially several millions of pieces of artillery shells provided by North Korea to Russia, even if most of those haven't been yet used in the front line. They are put in storages in Russia. So basically it's another way to create a certain buffer for Russia for potential prolongation, but also potential escalation of the war.
Now,
And obviously, Beijing is trying to influence and to control this kind of relationship. So the symbolism of the visits of both leaders in Beijing exactly points out to the key role of Beijing in influencing both the PRK and Russia.
Now, Leslie, and briefly, it's not just Asian leaders that came to Beijing. Also, one of EU's representatives, although not representing the EU per se. Slovakia's Prime Minister, Robert Fico, is in Beijing. He already met with Vladimir Putin, and Vladimir Putin urged him to stop sending energy to Ukraine. Now, could Slovakia even, consider such a move?
Well, that would be very unwise to do. And I think Slovakia still has a very important, connections to the other EU countries and to other Western countries, including the US, which rather prevents to act too aggressively in that respect. But obviously, in propaganda terms, this is very useful, especially for Russia, but also towards Beijing. But it is important to remember that there is developing another element of cooperation of Russia and China. This is cooperation in so-called policy of memory. So the both sides recently, we witnessed that during the recent visit and meeting of Xi Jinping and Putin in Moscow in May, and we will see that obviously tomorrow and during the parade, that both sides will underline the common past and common alliances in the past during the Second World War against the empires of Germany and Japan, and common struggle. So this current slogan is the alliance tested by blood. And there are some indirect parallels made between the fighting Nazi Germany and imperial Japan. And the current struggle
it's worth remembering that the relations between Moscow and Beijing were not always as rosy as both leaders would like to portray them. There were some military clashes as well. Marek Menkiszak, head of Russia Department at the Center for Eastern Studies, was our guest this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching and stay with us for much more here on TVP World.